Hello, and welcome to Spiritual Calisthenics. Today, on March 17th, we celebrate the memory of St. Alexis, the man of God, as well as the Thursday of the second week of Great Lent. St. Alexius was born in Old Rome of illustrious parents named Ephimenius and Aglaeus, and at the request was joined to a young woman in marriage. However, he did not remain with her even for one day, but fled to Edessa, where he lived for 18 years. He returned to Rome in the guise of a beggar and sat at the gates of his father's house, unknown to all and mocked by his own servants. His identity was revealed only after his death by a paper that he had on his person, which he himself had written a little before his repose. The pious Emperor Honorius honored him with a solemn burial. The title Man of God was given to him from heaven in a vision to the Bishop of Rome on the day of the saint's repose. Though thou didst bud forth from a renowned and notable root, and though thou didst blossom from a city famed for her great imperial dignity, yet did you scorn all things as corruptible and fleeting, striving to be joined to Christ your Master forever. Entreat him, Alexius most wise, fervently for our souls. Now, in stark contrast to the other readings of Isaiah, we are going to spend time on this one because Isaiah 6, 1 through 12 is extremely important. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above him stood the seraphim. Each had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, and with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. And one called to the other and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. Now, this is very important because when we look in the holy altar, we see the fans, which in Greek they're called edified, which means 6 wings. The seraphim are the angels that serve closest to God. It's the highest rank of angels. And so the altar boys are symbolically in this as they represent the seraphim in the altar. And that's why they're carrying those fans, the edified, representing this vision of Isaiah. And we hear within the hymnography of the church, holy, 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 Aios, 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 again and again and again. And the foundations of the threshold shook at the voice of him who called, and the house was filled with smoke. This is again the incense. The house is full of smoke, the sweet-smelling fragrance of our prayers. And I said, Woe is me, for I am lost. For I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. In other words, Isaiah has recognized himself as a sinful man. He is not pure, even though he's a good man. Then flew one of the seraphim to me, having in his hand a burning coal, which he had taken with tongs from the altar. And he touched my mouth and said, Behold, this has touched your lips, your guilt is taken away, and your sin is forgiven. This is the same words that the priest says after he takes communion. Behold, my lips have touched you, you take away my sin. Now, what is important about this is the idea of the communion being seen as fire. And when we read our pre-communion prayers, we see this, that it is a fire that burns the unworthy. In fact, the fiery word in Greek is anthrax, so anthrax. And so the idea is that because he is worthy, he is able to take in the coal, which cleanses him of his sins, because the body of Christ and his blood cleanse us, change us, fill us with his grace, fill us with his person, so that we are able to do wondrous things. And I heard a voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? So God is asking, who among you is going to do the will of God? Now, because he has been filled with the grace of God, because of the communion that he received, Isaiah responds, Here I am, send me. And he said, Go and say to this people, Hear and hear, but do not understand. See and see, but do not perceive. In other words, God is going to send his messengers, his judges, the prophets, and Christ himself. And they will preach. People won't understand. They'll do miracles. People still won't see, because we have plugged up our ears with our sinfulness and covered our eyes with our arrogance. Make the heart of this people fat and their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes and hear with their ears and understand with their hearts and turn and be healed. In other words, because we have turned away, we can't see. And because we can't see and we can't hear, we can't be healed. And we become under the sway of the devil. Then I said, how long, O Lord? And he said, until cities lie waste without inhabitants, and the houses are without men, and the land is utterly desolate, and the Lord removes men far away, and the forsaken places are many in the midst of the land. In other words, people are going to be like this until the end of time. And so the few are going to be those that actually listen, those that follow after God. In Genesis, we continue. This is the book of the generations of Adam. When God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. Male and female he created them, and he blessed them and named them man when they were created. Now, what's interesting about this is we're having a second creation story. And what's important about this is to understand that while in Jewish tradition we believe that Moses is the one that wrote the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, the reality is, as we read through it, that's not exactly the case. There are between 3 and 5 authors that history basically says this is the case. So there's the Elohistic authors that are looking towards godly principles. There's the priestly authors. There's another author that's looking for the idea of the kingdom. And so we see here, right after the story of Adam and Eve and the splitting off of the rib, now a second story about Adam and Eve. And what's amazing about this, my beloved brothers and sisters in Christ, is that despite the fact that these are different authors and that this was largely communicated orally throughout the centuries, it is still salient to our salvation, and every word matters. That's what's so incredible about the will of God in preserving this and bringing this to us. When Adam had lived 130 years, he became the father of a son in his own likeness, after his image, and named him Seth. The days of Adam after he became the father of Seth were 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Now, we're going to go through a lot of names and a lot of people living a long, long time, basically between 600 and 900 years each. Now, one might ask, well, how is that possible? Is that hyperbole? Well, no, we were looking at this and realizing that this was entirely possible. And when we get to Noah, we're going to explain possibly why that is. There's some scientific reasons as to why people believe that perhaps people were able to live longer because of the different atmospheric conditions prior to the flood. When Seth had lived 105 years, he became the father of Enosh. Can you imagine that, being 105 years old before you had your child? Now, you're good mature at that point. Seth lived after the birth of Enosh 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. When Enosh had lived 90 years, he became the father of Canaan. Enosh lived after the birth of Canaan 815 years, and he had other sons and daughters. All the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. When Canaan had lived 70 years, he became the father of Mahalalel. Canaan lived after the birth of Mahalalel 840 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Canaan were 910 years, and he died. When Mahalalel lived 65 years, and we're going to keep going, so Mahalalel gave birth to Jared, again, lived a long time. Now here's where we are going to get something very interesting. And it's one of those things where it's very easy to go, okay, I get it. There's a lot of names. This is important right here. When Jared had lived 162 years, he became the father of Enoch. Jared lived after the birth of Enoch 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. Enoch walked with God after the birth of Methuselah 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Now, that's significant. That's important, because what does it mean? It does not say that Enoch died. Everyone else said they died. Enoch didn't die. Now, most people know about Elias, that he rode up into heaven with a chariot of fire. But a lot of people don't realize that the other human being that is in paradise, the only other human being that's in paradise, other than Elijah, is Enoch. Everyone else went down to hell. And this is what the previous prophecies of Isaiah really communicate to us, because we've all fallen away. We've all sinned. And so everyone's in hell. Everyone needs to be rescued. The only two people that are not are Elijah and Enoch, who many interpret within the book of Revelation will be those two saints that come so that all men may die prior to Christ coming back. And finally, we look to Proverbs. Then do this, my son, and save yourself, for you have come into your neighbor's power. In other words, talking about making promises to him. Go hasten and importune your neighbor. Give your eyes no sleep and your eyelids no slumber. Save yourself like a gazelle from the hunter, like a bird from the hand of the fowler. Go to the ant, a sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her food in summer and gathers her sustenance in harvest. How long will you lie there, O sluggard? When will you rise from your sleep? A little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a vagabond, and want like an armed man. A worthless person, a wicked man, goes about with crooked speech, winks with his eyes, scrapes with his feet, points with his finger, with perverted heart devises evil, continually sowing discord. Therefore calamity will come upon him suddenly. In a moment he will be broken beyond healing. There are 6 things which the Lord hates, 7 which are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and a man who sows discord among brothers. My son, keep your father's commandment, and forsake not your mother's teaching. Again, as we said when we started at the very beginning of Proverbs, these are words to live by, to teach us how to live good lives. If we avoid these things, we will be doing well with our lives. I hope that you've enjoyed today's Spiritual Calisthenics. Have a blessed and wonderful day.